whether it is accepted or not. So for that, what we will do is as we got the text is into the JSON text format. Okay, if I come here, if I go to this JSON formatter, I'm putting this text. See here, it is coming like this. And in case if it is true, which means like our port is accepted. If it is false, port is got not accepted. So we will check that. What we will do is we'll use deserialize JSON activity. And first, let us increase the scope. And here we'll be using deserialize JSON. And we will be passing the response whatever we received. And in the properties, we're creating response. And from here, we will be getting this in this format, and whatever the key we have, this is a kind of a key value pair. Okay, and we need to access with this particular value key. And let me write a log message here. Response. Let us run this. So it is giving me as expected as false. So now we will be using the testing activities. Till now we didn't use the testing activities. Till now whatever we have used is like just to perform the API operations on top of an application using our UiPath Studio. And now we need to validate the data. Like in testing, like we will be looking at like what is the actual value and expected value, right? Expected versus actual. So now we have the verification statements. So we can have verify expression with operator. Like we have 4 specific testing activities here. If I come here, like we have some activities related to the data in order to generate our test data. Synthetic test data can be generated with the help of these activities. And we have test data queues, which help us in order to work with the test data queues. And we have the verification activities. Like we have 4 verification activities. So we will be using verification, verify expression with operator here, because we want to validate like whether output whatever we received from the API request is as expected or not. And verify control attribute we will be using in the UI automation testing. So that we will look at when we are working with web automation testing. And verify expression, it will be in case if we are getting a boolean directly from here, we can use this. Like whatever we got now, we can use either in this or in this, but here we may need to do the type conversion, so we are not going with that. And here we will be writing the first expression as response JSON of accepted. And if this is equal to true, test case is successful, because I doesn't want to, I want all my test, like I'm testing whether my application is accepted or not. So let me run this workflow. See, it is having a false value and it is not true. And when we run from the studio run file, we are getting, right? Let me click on run file with data variations. So now we can select which we want to use. We already test data, and we can select with which data execute. So now I will go with this. It is also got false. So for both of my data, test data, it is not working. So let me go ahead.
Meanwhile, you are doing that path, I want to add a couple of things for our audience. Like I mentioned, this is the UiPath Test Studio, and if anybody has observed the canvas where Path is playing around those test cases, there is a given when then statement, right? There are 3 blocks. Would you mind showing that? Yeah, so there's given, when, then. Can anybody tell that what exactly this pattern is? Okay, so this is what they called it as a behavior driven development. So this is commonly known as the given, when, then pattern, or a BDD pattern. Here, the main idea here is, and that where the UiPath Test Suite is keeping the legacy within that frame. So means given, when, then. If you have worked with Agile and Scrum Sprint, so you will understand that this is the same BDD pattern. Given means when you are giving up with the conditions, and when you do something, then what happens. So that is the pattern that is UiPath Test Suite is also following. So given is where when you are giving some data, when you are pressing a button or calling an API, then this is what should happen. So there's a very common pattern I want to highlight that UiPath Test Suite follows. Again, you can go over the internet and look for BDD or given, then pattern, and you will find more details about it. And second thing I want to also highlight is about the API testing. I hope many of you understand why API testing is important. There are in an application, there are three layers: presentation, business, and data access layer. And in order to make sure that the application is giving the best out of the business logic, which has most of the application, the presentation layer is very thin. It doesn't have much logic. The most of the logic sits in the business layer, which interacts with the database, right? So we need to, and this business layer interacts not only with the UI, sometimes it interacts with other third party applications also. So that is why it is very important to test the APIs. And then there are various type of API testing, whether it's about for security, for performance, for functional. So that is where API testing is very important, that Path is demonstrating how we can do that API testing to ensure different objectives, whether your objective is functional testing, your objective is security testing, or whatever objective you are carrying it. And that is where this API testing becomes very crucial and important overall for any application. Over to you.
Yeah. Thanks. So whatever the test data I provided for testing this API is like it is rejecting the loan. So my expect my expected result is false, right? So let me now execute it from here, right? Run file and run data variations. So what we can do is we can go to the test explorer, and from here I can execute these test cases. First, let me right click on this and run this flow individually, or we can run in the bulk as well. So now this has got passed successful. And if we here previously we got the red color highlights, and now it is in green, which means like it is meeting the expected criteria. And when I'll come back to this, and what I will do is I'll click on this drop down, and I'll just click on run failed test cases. Let us, if you see here, one test case is got failed and the other test cases got passed. So in this case, what I can do is I can go to this and I can run all test cases, and I can run only the failed test cases also. So now I'll be clicking on this run failed test cases. See here, now it has got passed, and now everything is passed. So this is how we will be testing the API using HTTP requests, like whatever the activities we have, drag and drop activities we have in the UiPath. But if you see here, like we are configuring these endpoints and adding all these parameters, and we are deserializing this object and to do all this uh, extensive task, right? How we can reduce this and we can speeden up our API testing. So here, if you see here, this is our documentation, API documentation, and in the Explore API, it is giving all the detailed explanation of how we can access this API and how we can make the API request to this particular APIs. And now if I come here we have a Swagger file. If you click on this, we will be having a JSON file, which is having this Swagger documentation. And I'll be copying this URL, which is having the extension of .json. And I can come here, and there is a new service. So I'll click on this, and I'll be passing on this, and click on load. So it will give me all the endpoints, whatever I have. Accounts, I'll be unchecking addresses, I'll be unchecking users, I'll be unchecking transactions. I'll be keeping only code because my area of interest is like to get the codes for an application. So here I can say Swagger UI Bank. So these are my going to be my namespace. Click on save. Sorry, click on save. So if you see here, like I gave the namespace as Swagger UI Bank. And it is saying that like set of new activities are got generated. And I click on view, go to the activities, and if you see here, Swagger UI Bank. So it reflected as a drag and drop activities for all these activities I have. And I can just simply drag and drop this code new code, right? And here to pass on these values, that's it. Amount. Even for this also I loaded the test data. So we have the test data arguments created. So for term, it is term, and for income, it is income. Of course, it will not allow here. So will just need to make some changes. So for email, it is email. So if you see here, all these are in the string, right? But what it will accept is it will accept only the double values. So what we can do is convert dot to double and put this inside of it. Convert dot to double for all this.
So if you remember yesterday also we discussed about day before yesterday that most of the tasks that we are doing is no code, low code, but there are few areas where specifically like what path is showing where we need to convert into a specific type. So that is the maximum, like if you're not very familiar with this conversion, these are the few areas you may need to convert that into a specific type, but most of them, like Path was showing, are drag and drop functionalities. And also just to give you about the Swagger that Path just showed, it is an open source tool which helps the programmer to design, develop, document their REST APIs. So basically, that tool is it is the way how you look into the API. But again, no coding involved, just minor maybe conversion here and there. That is what we are doing.
So I think just adding to Atul's point, right? So it's more of kind, we can say just we are writing a syntaxes here, very base line syntaxes of when the people knows the basics, right? Like the variables or uh, conversions or very like instead of going into the deep or advanced programming levels. So that will be good enough here. And even that is also like IntelliSense is helping us in order to write it. Yeah. So and we need to provide the base URL. Base URL is this uibankapi.uipath.com, and we just need to put it just before this API. And here we doesn't have any authentication, so we can just keep a blanks here. And if we have any authentication, we can provide those authentications, username, password, or in case if we have a tokens, we can just give those values here. And the response. And here we need to enhance the scope for response instead of when we will be doing in this. Like whenever we have a sequence, right? When we create an argument inside of this sequence, it is available, the variable will be available only inside of this sequence. It will not be available outside of that. So in order to get that accessible in the then, where we will be validating whether the expected and actual are same or not, so we will be using it. And that's why we enhance the scope to the UiBank test Swagger instead of when. Okay. And now here we will be using verify statement. Expression with operator we can do. And here response dot accepted. And here we can simply say false. So it should be failing it should be successful. My test case should be successful because the loan will be rejected with the data whatever we are passing it.
There's a question from Ranjit. He's asking about timeout MS. Can you speak to that as to what does the timeout do?
Okay, yeah. So timeout MS is something that when we are authenticating to any server, right? So depends on the server response time or server load or like whatever the response time we will be having on top of a server. So it will wait for that particular maximum of that time. And in case if it is received, let us suppose here it is given as 30,000 timeout ms, right? And let us suppose you got the response in 1000 milliseconds, it will go to the next activity, or else it will wait till 30,000 milliseconds, which is 30 seconds. And if the response is not received, it will fail. So maximum time that the agent or code or workflow will wait for the response to be received from the server. Okay, and I'm running this file. See here, now it could able to get the response. So instead of doing all like adding the parameters and going with HTTP request, we can directly configure service and we can get them as an is in order to test and speed up. And the similar can be done with the postman collection as well. Like when we go for the service, it's not only the swagger file, we can go even configure the VSDL files, WSDL files, and we can even configure the postman collection as well. So from the test explorer, let me run both of the things at the same time. Click on run. Now it will execute both the test cases in an order. See here. Now it will execute both. Now we will come to the UI bank testing. And I have already created an object repository. So I want to delete this and I will start from the beginning. So if you are from the testing side, right, like you work on the Selenium or any test automation tools, so you are of page object model. In the similar way, UI repository also will work. So here we will be creating objects here, and we will be using them in order to do automation. So I'll be creating an application, Chrome UI bank application. Create. And now I'll go to create a screen, home screen, click on indicate. So just we will need to select this screen and that will be available. Click on create. And now inside of this, we need to create an elements. So we'll click on the element. And if we come to the screen, how we need to navigate is we need to click on this products and then we need to click on the logo. So first we will be selecting products menu, click on indicate, click on validate. Now it is successful and click on confirm. And an element object is got created. This is the screen and this is the application. This is how hierarchy will be there. And an application, under that we have a home, then we have the products menu. And now let us click on create one more element, loans item, right? Click on indicate, but we need to click on this and then we need to click on loans, right? So we can just simply pause here so that it will give me 5 seconds. And now I can navigate to this, and I can select this and click on validate. Okay. I'll just remove this. And from the UI Explorer, we can even fine tune this. Like when we are spying the XPaths in an application by right clicking and inspect, in the similar way, UI Explorer will help us in order to explore the element properties. We can select whatever we are reliable and click on validate. Once it is validated, and if you can see this in the green color, which means like our element is stable. And now click on validate. Now validation is successful. So we need to validate before we capture the elements. Click on confirm. And the loan item is also got created. And now we need to go to the screen. It reached this screen. So now we can create one more screen because the screen is right. So we can just click on this and click on create screen, which is loans screen. And you can indicate on this and create screen. And inside of this, we'll click on this and we will go with the capture element instead of create. You can directly capture it from here. So we'll just click on record this, and you can have this apply button and click on save and continue. So now my element is got saved. So click on save. And if you see here, we got the apply for a loan element is received. Click on this, and now here is where we will be entering all the information and click on submit loan application. Right. So for that, I'll be creating a new screen here. Create a screen. Input applicant details and indicate on the screen. Create screen. And now we have multiple elements here, right? So instead of going one, we'll just click on the capture all elements. So it automatically identified all these elements, the majority of the elements, and here it is also identified this element, and this is not required. So I'm unchecking this, and I'll click on capture, so that like all my details are captured. So it is taking back and all, whatever is required and whatever is not required, remove those elements. Okay, so this back is not required. So it is highlighted. So we will wait whether we are deleting the right one or not. So the back is not required. So we'll just delete. When we hit on the delete, it will be deleted, and we'll be selecting this, and these drop downs it's saying, right? So we'll be removing that as well. And current yearly income, we have loan term. So we have everything. Now click on save and continue, and click on save. So now we got everything, right? And now I want to add the data. Loan amount required is some high number, which I doesn't want this to be. Approved. Submit loan application. Sorry, at this time you don't have been approved for a loan. So now we will select this. And if this comes, my test case is passed. If not, so we need to capture the screen also. Right click, create a screen, loan status. Click indicate. Now We'll capture the element, record. Okay. So now I'll click on save and continue. Save. So I'll rename this because it's always good to have a proper naming conventions. Sorry, I'll not be using this. So for that, we'll right click and we'll click on edit element, and here we can just give loan status. Click on save. Now we created all the objects. Now we need to build our automation, right? So first we need to open this screen, right? So we'll just simply drag and drop this object. So here, it created my activity also when I drag and drop. And now we'll just go to the products menu. We need to click on that. So we'll select click, and we need to click on loan items. So we'll drag and drop, and we'll use click. We have input details. We will be dragging and dropping over this screen, and inside of this we'll be entering email address. So we'll be using type into, and we'll be using what is the order, loan amount, type into, and then loan term, select item. So now what is the next? Yearly income and age, right? Yearly income, we'll be typing. For the drop downs, we'll be using select and age. Okay. Now we will be creating submit loan application. We'll be clicking on it. So now we need to pass the inputs here. So this is email address, email, and for the loan amount, term, and income, age. So once we submit this, we need to have a page where we will be reaching for the status, right? So what we will do is we'll just drag and drop the loan status here, and now we will be using verify with attribute. Verify component. Okay. Now we'll be putting it here, and loan status, and get text. Okay. One second. We'll go over, come here. we'll get the text and then we will verify it. Text saving to loan status. Verify expression. Loan status, and we can simply say contains sorry. In that case, my loan is got rejected, right? So I'm running this file. So let me close this first and then run it. So here we need to select this, open, if not open, close this to never, and here I wanna close this. And now let me run this file. Oops, okay, got it. There is a mistake I have done. So here it should never open. Are we not clicking on this? Let me stop this. Oh, we missed out one step, clicking on this application, right? So we need to click on this loan screen. We need to open, and we need to click on this apply for loan. Click it. So we'll be closing this and the file. Okay, it's a case sensitivity. Because of the case sensitivity failing. So now I will update. In case if I update the state as to capital, it will work. But now this we built it for Chrome. So let me come here, and what I can do is I can just click on this icon, extract as UI library. Click on this, and the name what I want to give is so the name what I want to give is UI Bank object repository. Click on create. Yes. So if I come here, I could able to see these all screens, right? I'll be clicking on publish and next, and I'll be publishing it to local. You can publish it to the orchestrator also. Publish. My object repository is published. So now what I want to do is I want to change everything to, let me open my previous project. All this, right? So let me go to manage packages. Under settings, I'll configure a new path, which is downloads, where I just published, right? And if I come here, I can see this object repository, right? So first let me do one thing. Click on install and see. See here. Under UI library also I got this. I can just simply delete this. Welcome to UI. So even if I remove my object repository, this library is helping me out. So let me come back to the object repository, and here let me update all these applications and republish it to the edge. Okay, let me come to home page, and here is my object repository, and I'll right click and edit descriptor, integrate new application. I just click on this, click on OK. So now let me click on this. Let us see the descriptor. It is going to the edge. Let me click on edit, click on validate. It's not accepting, so I'll select this on OK, cancel. What I will do is I'll just delete the entire and I'll create a new object repository here. This is with edge.
In Path, we want to maybe also, I know we only have 4 minutes left here. There are one or two questions which I would like you to maybe address if you think this is a logical point. So Naveen has asked, I think, and I think the answer could be depends, but he's been asking that sometimes, like, if you use testing suite to test the process automation, and then that's where they are seeing that there are some performance issues there, that it's pretty slow when they are using UiPath from a to do the process automation testing. So do you have any experience or any insight as to if there's anything special they should be keeping in mind when you're doing your process automation testing as compared to maybe a regular application testing or any web-based browser testing or something? Is that what you're looking at, Naveen? Maybe you can unmute yourself, and then maybe you can further add to that as to what challenge you are facing when you're trying to use UiPath Testing Suite for the process automation testing. Naveen, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry. I believe that's what Naveen was referring to. If you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can go ahead.
Yeah, that's what Naveen was referring to. Instead of going with like web automation testing,
Yeah.
we want to look something use case which is defined in a way like like RPA process, where we can test RPA process mostly. Any use case in that we can just.
Yep.
So yeah, when we are trying to test the RPA processes using UiPath, right? So here there is I could able to see that like you are saying a single workflow will have scenarios, but we can link one workflow with one test case. See, we will not link our workflows to the UiPath test cases into test. What we will do is we will create a test case from the workflow, and you can create any number of you are invoking your workflow inside of your test case, right? So let us suppose if you have 4 scenarios, you can create 4 test cases, and you can use this same workflow to be invoked inside of your all 4 test cases. Like you have seen the structure, right? Given, then, when, then. So in the when, your workflow will be invoked, and you will be having your separate conditions or verification statements in the then sequence. Sorry, given, when, then. Yeah, then sequence.
So you are saying that so we have 4 tests, like we have one workflow which includes 4 test cases. Oh, sorry, 4 scenarios. So you are saying we can
Hmm.
just copy the same workflow into 4 different.
It's not copying. Let me share my screen once again.
So let's take an example here, right? I mean, what it depends upon your test scenario. For example, let's say you are creating a process for login. Let's take a very simple example of login, right? And the process in the when is when user enter a username and a password and click on login button, right? Now you can have 3 test cases around it. One is the positive test case where you're entering a right username and password. In that case,
Hmm.
the expected behavior is that you should be able to log in, right? You should see a successful message. The other test cases will be what if you enter a wrong user ID and a right password. Third use case can be you can enter a right username and a wrong password. Or the fourth use case be you can keep both the username and as password as blank, right? So
Hmm.
the when condition, what Path is trying to say is now depends upon in this particular case the condition, the workflow is same because you're entering some username, a password, and clicking on a login button. Your behavior is changing. But the most important thing that is changing is the given condition where we are, what data that we are passing, right? So based upon that, yes, in this case, the when will remain the same, but the given will keep on changing. Your data is changing because your input is changing, and that way your output will be different, right? But in this particular example, you have 4 test cases, same workflow can be used.
Yeah. So if you see my screen, right, like this, let us assume that this is going to be a workflow. I'll right click on that and I'll click on create test case. And I'll keep it as test case 1 and it'll create it. And I can come here again and I can click on create test case and I'll get test case 2 create. And if you see here, it is getting invoked here.
Okay.
So your functionality is same.
Can't we just do like passing different test data using like consider?
We can do that, but when you are validating your output, like verification, right? So in that case, you may need to keep it in another column, or something, and based on that, you can do that. Like when you are putting the input in the similar way, you need to have another column for the output expected. So you can go with run with data variations.
Makes sense. Okay.
See, and the most important thing is like these are the not specifically tied up with UiPath test suite as such, but these are the general practice that the best practices that we follow for any test automation, irrespective of your tool, how you design your test cases, how you validate those things, right? So those are the important best practice that are still we are carrying forward in our test suite.
But I suggest like to have different test cases for different scenarios, because we are linking these to the UiPath test manager, and from there we will be viewing this test results, right? Instead of like keeping the additional column, so I I think I prefer to go with 4 test cases, so that like you'll be having a different test cases for different test scenarios in the UiPath Test Manager, so that like it will be easy for you to track.
So is there any possibility that we can come up with a use case and have a discussion, like for the RPA processes? If at all, is that possible? So we can just
Yes, we
have a,
can definitely plan something. It is not in this series, but yes, we can definitely see if we can have like, I mean, during the last session, I'm not sure, but I mean, we can look into that. That one session we can add, which is dedicated moreover for the discussion. Again, these discussions are, we want to cover, every speaker wants, there is so much into the UiPath Test Suite. We want to cover as much as we can. So we apologize, we are not getting much time in order to discuss those things which are very key points for these kind of interaction. So let me work with Rahul and other speakers also, how we can make it in such a way that we bring those use cases and make it more like come in for discussion. But that is where those individual chapters are there, where we are dedicating those specific time in one-to-one meetings. These series are more capturing a larger audience. But yes, let me discuss with Diana and Rahul and other speakers, and if we can do something to facilitate a more kind of a series which is totally dedicated on those individual questions and like you suggested.
Yeah. No, I think yeah,
thanks.
that's right. We can look maybe after this session is ended, we can have another Q&A only session where we can just focus more on the details behind it. Yeah, I think we can take it. I know we are 4 minutes over. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time here. So no, this is great session. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll look forward to you on the future sessions again.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining.